All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Innovative Fitness here with Danny Gaz. Today's quick video is going to be on turning your body into a fat-burning, incinerating machine. How do we do that? In advance, please excuse any background noise. I'm at the gym. I don't have much time today, so I'm doing this right now while I'm riding the bike. I'm going to go over some points from a dietary standpoint, from a supplement standpoint, and from a training standpoint. How do you become thermogenic? So the topic of today is thermogenesis. What does that mean? Thermo means heat, genesis means the creation of. So the creation of heat, heat melts things. So the way your body can create more heat is by doing a few things. I'll go over those points later, but right now I want to talk about hormones. I want to talk about your brain, which runs everything, and I want to talk about the digestive system. Now, I'm going to whip through this. I'm going to use some pretty big words. So for the sake of time and not boring you with some 45-minute video, I'm going to try to pop this out in 15, 20 minutes. So you can learn how hormonal accesses work, learn what to do with your diet, learn what supplements to take, and turn your body into a fat-burning machine. So now to become a fat-burning machine, the number one thing is everybody says, okay, decrease calories. Well, decreasing calories is so lame. You got to cut back and starve yourself and all this other calorie deficit stuff. I've heard that for years. It never works, which is why we have a weight gain problem in the nation or anywhere else. There's 4 hormones I'm going to talk about. Insulin and leptin, they're on the same level. Adiponectin or adiponectin, and glucagon. Adipo, doesn't matter. It comes from your adipose tissue, which is your fat tissue. You can look it up. ADIPO, NACTI, ADIPO, NACTIN. Again, ADIPO, NACTIN. Glucagon, GLUCAGON. Insulin, you already know. And then there's leptin, LEPTIN. Okay. Now, so your brain runs everything. Dealing with these hormones, dealing with everything, every single cell in your body, your brain runs everything. In your brain, there's a couple things called the hypothalamus, HYPOTHALAMUS, and the pituitary, PITUITARY, anterior and posterior lobe of the pituitary. Your hypothalamus is always it's like acting like a filter. Your blood's flowing through it, it's reading what's in the blood. So from a hormonal level, if we're just talking hormones today, it's reading what hormones are in the blood and what are not. If something is low, it will send out a message to the pituitary, which will send out another message, which will then respond by sending it out to the glands of the body to release whatever hormones needed. If there's a situation of even in a fight or flight situation when you were witnessing something that's scary or something that requires an adrenaline rush, you don't even have to take anything in terms of food. You can witness things. You can think about things and create an adrenaline rush just by sight. And the hypothalamus will then trigger the pituitary, which will trigger the adrenal glands to release what are called your catecholamine, CATAE-CHOLAMINES, which is your epinephrine, adrenaline, norepinephrine group. And then you get this glucose surge and you get this energy surge to handle the fight or flight situation. That's one way the hypothalamus pituitary work. What that is called is your HPAA, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, the axis of communication between your adrenals, the pituitary, and the hypothalamus, HPAA. Now, in the body, there's HPHA, which is your hypothalamus pituitary hormonal axis, which is dealing with all these hormones. So let's go back to the hormones. I want to start with how do we become a fat-burning machine? Very simple. Insulin low, fat low. Insulin high all the time, fat high, period. I've seen it for over 30 years. That's why I always tell my clients, watch what carbs you take in, what kind of carbohydrates you're taking in, the amount that you're taking in, and do you ever deplete? That means do you ever get away from carbohydrates and carbohydrate deplete, creating a thirst for the body to have carbohydrate. If you create a thirst for your body to have carbohydrate, you're creating insulin sensitivity. If you are not creating a thirst for carbohydrate and you're constantly having it, you're becoming insulin resistant, whether you're conscious of it or not. It's because the hypothalamus is reading how much insulin and or sugars are in the blood. So when you take in a carb, your body releases insulin because insulin is an energy storage hormone. It needs to take that excess sugar that you took in, so your sugar levels rise in the blood. Your energy storage hormone, insulin, comes along as the vehicle to grab that glucose molecule and store it in your muscle tissues or in your liver. Highly regulated mechanism. So if you constantly beat up the pancreas with excessive carbohydrate, your insulin sensitivity is going to drop because the pancreas is going to get tired from producing all this all the time. The brain is going to shut it down and start to slow down that insulin production, whether you like it or not, and you start heading towards an insulin-resistant situation, type 2 situation. There are medications that doctors give you that to try to make your body produce more insulin. That stresses the pancreas anymore, which then can become another diabetic situation where you don't produce insulin anymore, you become a type 1, where you need insulin, and if you need insulin, that's a life or death situation. Insulin is super, super important. It's a life or death hormone. Now, insulin high, insulin low, fat low. How do we keep the insulin levels low? You got to watch your carbohydrate intake, okay? There's other ways, very extensive. When you can go on my YouTube channel, Ask Dr. Danny, which you're probably watching this on right now, and I have another video on fat burning that just talks about insulin alone. I'm not just going to talk about that today. I want to get more in depth. So I tell my clients, learn how to deplete. It's a protein and vegetable diet because proteins and vegetables are not going to spike your insulin pretty much at all. And people are like, well, there's carbohydrates in vegetables. I said, look, there's insulin spiking carbohydrates, and they are carbohydrates that don't spike insulin. There's carbs in mushrooms, they don't spike your insulin. There's carbs in cucumbers, they don't spike your insulin. Celery, any of the green family, pretty much. Carrots might a little bit, only if you juice them. If you eat them whole, they're not going to spike insulin as much because of the fibers. The fibers slow down the digestive process and the release of glucose, therefore it doesn't smash your pancreas to release insulin. Insulin low, insulin high, fat high. Now, all those mechanisms as they are happening, that insulin is also going to affect leptin. Insulin and leptin work synonymous, low insulin, low leptin. What happens when leptin is low? Well, for leptin to be low is because you got to control some sugars here. But what if there's something you can take that inhibits leptin? What if there's maybe certain types of nutrients that actually have a direct effect on the fat cell? And this is what became interesting to me when my sister introduced me this product, because she's like, it's a fat burner. I said, I don't want to see it. I said, I've seen thousands of them over the years. I could care less. They always stress the adrenal system. And she's like, well, this doesn't have any, caffeine or whatever. And I said, doesn't have any stimulants in it. She said, yeah. I'm like, okay, so send it to me. So I looked it over. And the more I've been looking at this over the last few weeks is I had to go back and look at my books on leptin because everything's been so insulin heavy, which is still true because they both work in hand. So I'm looking at this leptin inhibitor. I'm thinking if leptin levels drop, there's a reaction. And the hypothalamus and pituitary is guiding all this and directing all of this depending on the nutrients that are in the body that carry the certain frequencies that direct communication. So if you're taking in certain types of nutrients, that directly affects the brain to communicate with the fat cells to start freeing up stored fat to be burned as energy. That's groundbreaking. So looking at leptin, which is very interesting, as far as I know, it's really not released by any other exocrine gland. It's not released by the adrenals, testes, ovaries, or any of that nature, right? So what's interesting about leptin is it's not released by any exocrine glands. Exocrine glands being, your adrenals, reproductive organs, testes, ovaries, and things of that nature that usually need a gland to secrete a hormone. Well, this is adipose or fat tissue secreting hormones. So when leptin is reduced, the fat cell starts to produce or bring up adiponectin or adiponectin, adipo, whatever you want to say, ADIPO, NECTIN, and that starts to incinerate fat cells or burn them off a little bit. On the other side, when insulin drops and you give the pancreas a rest from releasing insulin, it starts to release glucagon, GLUCAGON, which means glucose gone, because you're running low on glucose. Your body's looking for other energy to burn up. Glucose just happens to be the simplest, most fast way to make energy, or ATP. So if insulin is low, glucagon goes up. When insulin's low, leptin is low, adiponectin goes up. Insulin, leptin, adiponectin, glucagon. Glucagon goes out, and it uses certain amino acids, carnitine amino acids, and some other things to free up stored fatty acids to be burned as energy. So now adiponectin and glucagon are working hand in hand to release the stored fatty acids into the bloodstream to then be converted into glucose, called gluconeogenesis, GLUCONEOGENESIS, look it up. and then gluconeogenesis. So now you can start making the glucose molecule or sugar molecules because of this adiponectin and glucagon response that's freeing up fat in the body. The problem is it's just a slower process, right? If you want instant energy, you can throw a sweet tart under your tongue, get the insulin spike, get the energy spike because it's sugar. The problem is we crash too much, so you have uneven insulin levels because you have uneven sugar levels. Now, the only reason you have uneven sugar levels is because you're too resistant. You have to create a thirst for sugar / insulin / the loading mechanism of insulin. You have to learn to inhibit leptin by inhibiting insulin. They work hand in hand. Now with this product that my sister showed me is that it goes directly to the fat cell. So the amount of sugar you can take in or drop can now theoretically be varied. You can deplete every now and then, but you might not have to deplete as much. Okay, so case in point. I learned how to deplete back in college. And when you deplete and you create that sensitivity for insulin again, when you take in carbohydrates again, you load correctly. That mechanism takes some time, but you can make it more and more sensitive the more that you deplete on a weekly basis. I have a video on this on my YouTube channel, Ask Dr. Danny, on just straight on insulin, how to deplete and load. It's a carb cycling thing that you can do weekly. It works like a charm. It's just hard to do at first because people don't know how to eat a protein and vegetable diet when they're depleting. You're not taking in any insulin spiking carbs whatsoever. You're eating protein and vegetables, high protein, high fiber, high multicolored rainbow colors of food, which is antioxidants, minerals, enzymes in those vegetables, which are also cleansing to the gut. And you start burning fat like crazy because you can also increase your fats, your coconut oils, your olive oils. Just look at the video, it explains all of that. So now when you're depleting and reloading, that mechanism starts to get more sensitive. So when you become more sensitive to insulin, you're going to be more sensitive to leptin. So insulin resistance and leptin resistance, which work hand in hand, is the reason you're storing more body fat because the brain's just reading it that way. It's reading what you're taking in, y'all. Okay? You do not need donuts and cakes and sugary snacks maybe once a week. And I'm talking if you want to lose weight, you are having a calorie / sugar / insulin problem. So sugar is the culprit. Excessive calories and emotional response. You're overeating because you're miserable. I'm being frank here. I'm being completely truthful. I'm sorry, but I see it all the time. Everybody that focuses on losing weight doesn't. When they focus on getting healthy and fit, learning how to eat, learning how to cook, learning how to train, they get fit. Guaranteed. Renew your mind. Everybody lose weight. The body's like, nope, I hold on to it. Then you just learn how to train. Then you learn how to eat. Then you learn how to supplement. And you learn how to train some more. You learn how to manipulate hormones and insulin with your diet. And you start becoming more fit. The weight just starts coming off. You're too focused on losing weight. You got to let it go. That's for a lot of people out there, I guarantee it. It's a hard word, but it's true. You have to let go of this. I need to lose weight. You know it. Everybody knows. You have to learn how to turn your body into a fat-burning machine. That's what this video is all about. Insulin low, leptin low, fat low, because insulin and leptin resistance then will become more sensitive because you're giving it a break. You're not utilizing it all the time. Leptin low, adiponectin released. Insulin low, glucagon released. Leptin and adiponectin working opposite of each other. Glucagon, insulin working opposite of each other. Drop insulin and leptin, I'll say it again. Adiponectin and glucagon work together to free up stored fatty acid to be burned. It takes time. It's a mechanism, an enzyme system, and communication pathways in the body, biological systems that are much slower than putting a sweet tart under your tongue and getting the insulin sugar response. You have to learn how to make your sugars and your insulin pathways work so much better. So look at the depletion video that I have on burning fat with insulin. This particular product that my sister sent to me is very interesting because it is going to stimulate a leptin, from what I can tell so far, a leptin inhibition response right directly at the fat cell. So if you're able to do that, then insulin is going to react to that in ways I'm not really sure yet. That doesn't mean Doesn't mean you're going to have cakes and cookies and all that other stuff and keep your carbohydrates high because you're inhibiting leptin. If you keep spiking insulin, you're still going to be stressing the pancreas and the brain, the hypothalamus pituitary is still going to read it. So there has to be a change in the diet to a certain degree, no doubt. What people have noticed on this product, though, is they have been able to eat some other sugars, not excessively, and still be able to burn fat because of the power of adiponectin and glucagon. But you really got to get the glucagon as well into your system, and that's by watching your carbohydrates. Does that mean you eliminate them? No. This whole keto thing, you know, they have names for everything now. Back in the day, we called it carb depleting. And then they call it keto now because it puts your body in a state of ketosis, which is another video for another day. But you become a fat-burning machine. So let's inhibit leptin with some certain nutrients. Let's control insulin with the amount and types of carbohydrate you take in, and let adiponectin and glucagon do its job. Insulin low, fat low. Leptin low, fat low. Adiponectin high, fat low. Glucagon high, fat low. Adiponectin low, fat high. Glucagon low, fat high. That's how it works, y'all. So I hope this video kind of educated you just a little bit so you can kind of come up with a plan of attack to say, how am I going to do this? If you need some coaching, go to my Facebook page. It's Danny Kaz, K-A-Z, Innovative Fit. I am just been building this online platform that I'm going to do, this coaching platform, to show you what supplements to take, to show you what training you need, to send you some workouts just to get going on this app that I use, to get you to understand how to become thermogenic. How do I get stronger? How do I get leaner? How do I become more fit? The fat loss comes from that. You have to learn to manipulate insulin. You have to learn to take certain supplements that we now know can inhibit leptin. If this stuff really works like these double-blind placebo tests said, this is a game changer, y'all. It really, really is. And the only reason I'm looking into it is because it's not one of those typical fat burners that just smashes your adrenal system. I've had adrenal exhaustion 2.5 times, I'll say technically, in my life. It's no fun. You feel like crap. When your adrenals are stressed out, guess what happens? Insulin resistance, leptin resistance. So the adrenals are going to play a role in this as well, where the emotional component comes in of being miserable and being stressed out means cortisol levels are high. Guess what other levels are high? Insulin, sugars. Because in a stress state, your body is in fight or flight. It's always releasing glucose. It's releasing stored glucose from your body, so you're always having this insulin issue. That's another factor that needs to be addressed, and that's the adrenal pathways, which is another video for another day. Today, it's about insulin and leptin being low, adiponectin and glucagon being high, and you become a fat incinerating machine all day long, even when you're at work resting. Burning fat all day long because your metabolic rate goes up. What is your metabolic rate? Last point of the day. When you take in food, I'll make this super simple. You have what's called a basal metabolic rate. Like if you weigh 200 pounds, there's a certain amount of calories that you need every day, plus or minus 500 calories, that will keep you at 200 pounds, regardless of body fat percentages. So if you're 200 pounds and you're 15% body fat, 2,000 calories a day is keeping you there, okay? If you drop to 1,500 calories a day, which is nothing, oh, that would suck to eat 1,500 calories a day, then over time you might drop some weight a little bit, but your body's going to adjust to that 1,500 calories. But you're starving. You're training, you're working out, you should be able to eat more and stay leaner if you're burning all this energy. But not if all those hormonal accesses that we just talked about are off. You're not going to, because the brain is not allowing you to. The way you think, the things that you take in, the brain is just reacting to the chemistry. So if a guy's 200 pounds at 15%, he's taking 2,000 calories a day, he either needs to manipulate protein, carb, and fat and drop his sugar so he depletes and starts burning more fat, right? Or he's gonna have to drop his calories. I prefer to mess with the ratios and not worry about calories and just eat more protein and vegetables and then know when to have my carbohydrates and my insulin spike so my insulin stays sensitive, my leptin stays sensitive, and my adiponectin and glucagon do what they're supposed to do. Basal metabolic rate is how many calories do I need every day to stay the same weight? So just dropping calories to increase your metabolic rate might not work because the calories get too low. The calories get too low, the body gets stressed. What does the body do when it's stressed? Holds on to fat. All right, so number 2, your gut. Gastric emptying time, GET, or how fast your body turns your food in the stomach organ before it dumps it into the small intestine to then be utilized nutrients in the small intestine. So the time that you take in food, the stomach's doing what it does, starts to dump off the chyme, CHYME, into the small intestine. There's a certain speed or rate that can happen. The smaller the meal, the faster that happens. This is why way back in the day they said you want to get leaner, just start eating smaller, more frequent meals. You can still pound away 4,000 calories a day, but you do tiny little jolts all day long, and your stomach burns it up like that. And when your stomach burns it up like that, that's fire in the furnace. That's a metabolic rate. This is your burner. Your liver's involved in that as well because it's part of the digestive system. So stomach, small meals, you burn so much faster because it's easier for your body to digest. Case in point, let's go to Thanksgiving. You stuff yourself like crazy, right, with stuffing and everything else, and you're just loaded down because it's just too much. It slows your metabolic rate. Smaller, more frequent meals will make you burn fat like crazy. When you do the protein and vegetable little jolts all day long, and every now and then know when to have a carbohydrate, you'll get leaner. If you have certain days you have pointed out every single week where you have no insulin spikes, no insulin carbs, and you eat the protein, vegetable, higher fat diet, you'll start to burn fat. When you reintroduce carbohydrate, it will load correctly because you've created a thirst or a sensitivity for insulin. And a sensitivity for insulin will be a sensitivity for leptin. And the sensitivity for both of those will burn fat. And the sensitivity for creating the correct insulin response also burns fat. Because then when you take in the fast-burning carbohydrate pathways, once you take those carbohydrates in and you start to get that insulin response, you'll burn more fat again because you're sensitive to it. If you're not, you won't. Excessive insulin leads to excessive non-loading of carbohydrate, so you have all this excess sugar in the blood. The body has to drop the sugar. It doesn't want to be out of balance, so what it does is it enzymatically turns the glucose into triglycerides or fats. So fat stores go up. It's a loading principle. Inhibit leptin with this product, watch your diet, and you should get shredded and get more fit. This could be a game changer, so I just wanted to put this up here for y'all and hope it gave you some education. Listen to it slow, pause the video, look up some of these words I talked about, like hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, pancreatic axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, testicular axis, how hormones are communicating with the brain and the rest of your body and what their results are. So that's it for today. God bless y'all. I hope this helped you. Check out my Facebook page at Danny Kaz Innovative Fit. YouTube page is Ask Dr. Danny. And I'm just going to be loading all kinds of stuff. And when my online platform is ready to rock and roll, you'll see it on Facebook. Bless you.